Welcome back to another Pox Nora Q&A with lead designer Sokolov.
Hi everyone, it's good to be here.
Dr. Mr. Bad Guy asks, will non-ticket drafts ever come back?
So drafts in general are slated to come back. There are a lot of technical issues that still have to be resolved to get them to work. We worked on stage one of that, which was basically making the tournaments themselves working again, since drafts are the dependent system on the tournament system working. So they are coming.
Several players have asked, what are the plans for advertising the game in the future?
We don't have any specific details to announce in regards to advertising. There are plans to do so, and we are setting some money aside for that purpose. That said, you guys can help by being active on the forums and Twitter and other forms of social media that's related to Pox Nora, particularly once the advertising starts coming in. I myself am posting on the Reddit recently as well. So.
Prof Hulk asks, who wrote Sixual's flavor text, and will there be more unique runes with flavor text alluding to the development of more creative runes?
That's a very odd rune. It's mostly a one-off that Corpse created. I think if you asked him, he couldn't even tell you what that really was about. So it's pretty interesting how many people actually like that particular rune, despite the fact that it really has nothing else going with it aside from its own flavor text. It could very well just exist sort of in any expansion, in any game. It's just kind of a standalone.
Belagon asks, does the development team have any plans regarding the accessibility of limited edition runes that do not have legendary counterparts?
Yeah, so we've been debating this quite a bit internally. Currently you see them being given away in events and other tournaments, and that's likely to continue. There are some runes that we're considering making legendary counterparts for sharding purposes, so you can forge them. Those are likely to be somewhat higher prices, perhaps, but nothing's been finalized on that front yet.
Next question from Burn Pyro. What is your opinion on the collectible trading card aspect of Pox Nora? Could it be holding Pox Nora back in attracting new players?
It's hard to say, because there are lots of aspects to this, in regards to rune accessibility. It's safe to say that on a per rune basis, Pox Nora is more accessible than ever. But the fact that the collections are so large in terms of potential collections could be a hindrance. It's certainly more of a hindrance to a person who wants everything. We are doing several things in the future to make it easier for new players to earn the specific kinds of runes that he wants, namely mostly faction-based things. Faction-specific packs, is something that could come in the future as well. The real hurdle, I think, for Pox Nora is that it is a niche market game, combining two particular markets, the tabletop strategy game as well as the card game, into what has always been a fairly hard to retain market, the demographic that we get. Pox is actually a fairly successful game if you consider the amount of users it has acquired over the years, and the fact that it was bought up by a large company. So in terms of that kind of stuff, it is a field that's grown more competitive lately. And so I think that's really, where Pox is at, more so than, what specific business model it currently is using.
MW24 asks, what are your plans to address Shoebox Runes, abilities, and the general cost of creating competitive decks?
So more or less the same kind of things we've already been doing. Obviously, with each patch we address various runes. Obviously some things get more noise and therefore more likely to be adjusted. If I don't know about it or nobody's talking about it, it's probably less likely that it gets adjusted, just by virtue of there being only so much time and only so much attention. Competitive decks cost is more of an accessibility question, and in that particular case, we do have a number of initiatives in place to address that sort of thing. In general, if you look at the trend over the years, cost has been coming down, particularly since the introduction of the Forge.
Lamone 1981 asks, are there any plans on improving the Drums of War?
So with the Drums of War, it was a cool mechanic when it started launching. but over time it's been broken a few times in various ways, and currently I think people have more or less lost interest in the way it works, mostly because I think the rewards haven't been very consistent, and it isn't surfaced within the game very well, and there's not really anything you do particularly to achieve it. You just kind of play. There are plans to revamp it, but I don't have any details to release about it at this time.
Gnomes asks, can you give any hint about the next big thing being developed?
I've recently previewed the Heroic Achievements. You can read a lot of details about that forums. Basically, it is an extension of the daily achievement system with more goals and features, with the intent of asking you to change your decks a little bit. The goal isn't to force you to play specific factions so much as asking you to take a second look at certain champions. For example, that one achievement might be to ask you to play with a number of champions with the charge ability. And so obviously with something like that, multiple factions can achieve that. It may also be asking for other things. So if we do something like Fire Eater, we might also combo that with Ice Eater and Magic Eater so that you actually have different factions who can achieve that.
The Mecha asks, how do you feel the new midterms turned out, and did the new idea of having limited counterparts work as well as intended?
So I think they turned out great personally, based on player feedback. A lot of players like them, and our initial numbers do seem to suggest that it is worth doing. We have to do more investigations on that. We also want to try different ways of selling them. So with that particular midterm, we simply bundle them randomly. Perhaps there is other ways of doing it where you can buy a specific one. So we will see.
The Bambino asks, do you guys have any plans on adding any more game customization modes?
Historically speaking, those custom modes like Highlander and King of the Hill and that kind of stuff haven't been very popular, aside from 2v2. 2v2 is really the only one that's taken off. And so when those things started showing other technical issues and gameplay changes required fixing them, some of them simply got cut, mostly because nobody was playing them. Highlander was somewhat more high profile, mostly because at the time it launched, Pox Nora actually launched a tournament along with the Highlander mode, and so lots of players were playing it because of that. But once the tournament was over, people stopped playing it. That said, I think that special modes and special features like that have a place in Pox Nora. I would like to see some of them show up in tournament-specific modes. So maybe we could have a particular tournament where the rules are slightly different. But rather than doing them as a persistent thing that you can play all the time, having it be part of an event or a limited time thing, that's available for a particular weekend, is much more likely to happen.
We have reached the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and for everyone who submitted questions. Stay tuned for more from Desert Owl Games.